Welcome to the Masculine Revolution, hosted by Jeremy Brown and myself, Murphy G. This is episode number 41 with Rich DEWEES. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes,
I've
sir.
been looking forward to it. It's always a good time to hang out with you guys.
That's right. Appreciate you coming on. So this morning we're going to talk about The Uncommon Kingdom, the book you just wrote, which is super fitting because the first time you were here, you were talking about the path of being uncommon. So, it's encouraging to see that it's elevated since the last time, for sure.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to be able to come and to talk about it. It's kind of wild to have a book out and people can get on Amazon, and it's wild to think of myself as an author. But I'm very proud of the book, of the work that's been put out, and the opportunity to talk about it here is just so exciting for me. You know, when I came before talking about that whole idea of uncommon has been the word that has attached itself in my mind to what I want to be. And it's become kind of a standard by which I'm living my life, and I kind of like it. It allows me to make decisions that are the rest of the world. It's almost irrelevant in my decision process now.
Yeah, which is a big positive because the world's a little wild right now.
For sure it is, right? And it's crazy. The things that matter to me are in our society uncommon, but they shouldn't be. I don't think of them that way, but when I pay attention to how my life is different from a lot of what I see, those characteristics are uncommon.
Yeah. So digging into it, that's one of the. Obviously, we're not going to cover the entire book. That's not the purpose. Purpose is just put the word out there that hey, this is a good read. It's inspirational. It gives you practical applications. It's from a genuine place, from a genuine man, and so we can learn from it. But one thing that kicking it off in my mind is you give these first 4 chapters kind of broken up into 2 parts. The book is broken up into 2 parts. You got your foundations, and then you got the elements that feed those foundations, right? And so that why was one of those foundational reasons, So give us some kind of insight to why you wrote it. What was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so the reason I wrote the book is I've come to a place in my life. I'm 60 years old. And in my mind, that doesn't even seem possible. I still think I'm much, much younger than that, but I'm not. And I've come to the realization that God has been so good to me. He has poured so much into me, so many blessings. And I've kind of lived my life with an attitude of, well, if people need something from me, they can come to me to get it. And that just is not the way the world works. God has given me something that I need to make available to people. And that's what this book is. It's just my little attempt at taking what God's given me, turning it back around, and putting it out into a place where people might have access to it. I'm not telling anybody how they should live their lives. I'm trying to tell people, hey, here's an option for how you can live your life. And it's paid off well for me. I'm happy with the life that I've lived. I think I'm wildly successful in everything that matters. And that's what's in this book. But by worldly standards, the world's definition of success is a little different. I don't know if I measure up there, but I think in my Father's eyes, I've done okay. So that's the first why. But the underlying why of how I came to what's in this book is just the realization that I've lived my life attempting from the time I was 9 years old when I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior to live a life that honored Him. And that foundation really had put me on a path that's different. So I went to Bible college. I went into ministry. All of those pieces kind of stack up to lead me down a different path. But where I'm at now is that what was kind of insulated or isolated in church world is now very much just everyday, real world experience and insight. And I think anybody can take the little things that I've learned over 60 years, apply them, and get such benefit and blessing just from following the simple principles here.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I think that's what stuck out to me when I was reading it, was like, just like, it didn't come across as like preaching, but more of like, this is what's worked. And so, and then it was just broken up in a way that wasn't super technical, just very like, practical, and like, this is how, these are some steps. And you phrased it in a way that made me, like, allowed me to connect the dot myself, Yeah. So I mean, that part of it was just really stuck out to me. It was just like easy to take in, and able to like take ownership of how to apply it to myself too.
I'm so grateful to hear that, because to put this book out, for me, it leaves me feeling very vulnerable, because it's just me. It was me sitting down and typing out, hey, this is what I think, this is how I think it fits together, as I've reflected on my life. And I've written it, I think, kind of the way I talk, which isn't great for the editor, but I think hopefully it comes across like we're having a conversation, because that's what I want.
Yeah.
I am not very scholarly, to be all technical and highfalutin. That's really not me. And so I hope that the book comes across as it's just me.
Yeah. I think one of the major connections, with down that lane, that for me personally is that exactly what you said. Like, hey, these are your experiences. These are the lessons that you've learned, or the dots that you've connected throughout life, and seeing that you're ahead of me in life, I can sit there and I find a lot of the values that are shared and the lessons that you've learned that are shared is like, I can see the dots, but I haven't necessarily connected them. Like when I'm reading it, I can sit there and be like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel, or I've experienced that, but I haven't been able to articulate it into words to communicate it effectively as far as learning the lesson, just because I haven't had those reps. But I can recognize it, because it's like, okay, well, I have experienced some of those reps, but I haven't necessarily come to the conclusion. And so, which is the beautiful thing about experience, right?
Yeah.
And how you can learn from your experiences without having to experience them myself, even though I have experienced similar things, but not enough to come to the conclusion. But then when I see the conclusion in here, it's like, well, that makes sense. So now I kind of have the ability to have a goal to set towards. So it kind of gives you an edge on decision making, or framing a path that you can see yourself like, okay, I'm not here yet, but I want to be. And so then all of a sudden it gives you a clearer, not, it's not a crystal ball, but it gives you a clearer path to be able to be like, okay, I can take these experiences and I can walk through it knowing that he was shooting not necessarily for the exact same goal, but similar, and you laid it out, like based on what you've experienced. And so it just gives you insight. It gives you insight, which is just I mean, you can't put a value on it. You can't put a value on that when you're in a stage of life such as I am, where, young family, relatively compared to you, beginning, a marriage and all this kind of stuff, and going through what life circumstances can throw at you. And you're just trying to figure it out as you go, because we haven't been given like a handbook, we've been given guidelines, especially with our, all of us sitting at this table with our faith. Obviously we go to the Bible, but the Bible doesn't necessarily give you like the answers with specific circumstances, with specific actions. It gives you principles that you can, just like you've kind of laid out. It gives you principles that you can apply. But sometimes you get into that position where you're just like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision or not, And so that's what's relatable here is that like you're just sharing that. You're just sharing that. You're sharing the life experiences, the trials, the successes, the failures, and what you've learned through both successes and failures. And so it kind of gives you this this edge if you're open to using it.
Yeah. The reality is that any truth that comes out in this book, I've just borrowed from Scripture. That's all I know. That's all I've tried to live my life by, those foundational principles that God put in His Word. But you're right; they are not easily adapted to our society, to applying them to our everyday circumstances. And so I've spent a lifetime trying to figure that out. And so I hope that it comes across in this book that I have this foundation that is Christ and Christ alone. And while the book is not overtly Christian, in some ways purposefully, because I hope that there will be some people that will read it and absorb some of it, because they would have put it down had it been too churchy. But on the other hand, there's no way I can get away from the fact that Jesus Christ is the foundation. Whatever truth is here has come from Him through His Holy Spirit into me, and it is experience, right? And everybody knows how you make good decisions. You make good decisions by having experience, and everybody knows how you get experience. It's by making bad decisions. And so we walk through life, and that's the process, right? And so someplace along the line, I figured out that maybe all of my bad decisions and the struggles that I've gone through because of them, they might pay off for somebody else. And very much the audience, I think this book comes across very masculine. Obviously, even the cover has a masculine feel to it. I don't think it's a men's only book. I think it's the foundational principles are for anybody who wants to walk a path that's contrary to or different from what society is kind of laying out for us. Yeah. So I am hopeful that young men, even younger than you guys, might pick it up and might glean some framework for thinking through the challenges that they face. I think about young men with young children trying to navigate the world today. And I think it's worse than it was when I was doing it, but maybe my experience in the way I view the world and think through decision making might benefit them. And so that's definitely one of the goals that I had in putting the book out, to be a guide, to be an aid, specifically to young parents.
Yeah. I like it.
I mean, what stuck out to me was, as I was reading it, it's like, I mean, even if like uncommon's not the goal, the principles that you're talking about in here is a life of fulfillment, and which is all that anybody can hope for, really. The world sells, fulfillment is a whole circle. The world is good at, selling half circles and quarter circles and stuff like that. Just, you think success is the money, and then you get the money and you realize there's still something missing, right? Or you think it's the girl, then you get the girl and it's like, oh, it's still something missing, or whatever it is, right? There's always, the world sells you one little, half circle or whatever, where this book lays out how you can feel fulfilled, which is obviously has got the Bible all over it. But, it's cool because I'm not a heavy reader. I don't read daily, but being able to pick this up, it was digestible, and so I think that's something that will be good for younger guys for sure, is the fact that it's not super scholarly or massive words or these. It's very understandable and something you can bite off. So I haven't made it all the way through it yet. I just got it on Monday, but it's been good so far for sure.
Well, you're doing well because it just became available. So, I'm impressed. And I'm grateful that you find it to be digestible and easy to read. That all I want is for this content to be accessible to people. Because if you can't get to the truth that God has revealed in my life, it doesn't do you any good. And so I was hoping that it would just be something that would make sense as you read it. And uncommon is a word that has worked for me. It works very well in the way I view the world and the way I want to walk through the world. But all uncommon is to me is choosing your path. And uncommon may not resonate with you at all. But I'm guessing that the principles, the foundations of the book probably will if you put your own word to it.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's jump into a few of the principles. Obviously, we don't have time to, hit every single one of them, but I love that you started the first one off with love. I highlighted in it, love is more than a feeling, more than sexual, more than physical, more than blind, more than easy. Love is being committed to another human being as the highest gift and creation of God. How would your life change if you treated your spouse, your kids, your neighbor, or a stranger, or even your enemies like that? Why is love so important?
Yeah, love is foundational to everything else. God is love. And I think the world changes if human beings figure out that that's what love is. Right? In our society, love is so overused in terms of a word that now it's really hard to know what it means. And love to me is the decision to prioritize whoever's in front of you. And I don't have to know you to love you, which seems contrary to most of our definitions of love in this society. But it's, God made you. He made you unique. He made you special. And if I can't see him in you and choose to love you based on that, then the problem's with me, not with you. And I think that an accurate view of love and an accurate application of love in your life changes everything.
Yeah. What do you think's foundational with love as far as some other characteristics that would support it?
Yeah. Well, I think that if you truly love, then it becomes really hard to be selfish. That's our society is one that elevates self, and there's, you are important, so you need to take care of yourself. I agree with a lot of the idea of self-love and self-care. That stuff was ignored for a long time. There's a place for it, but you cannot be the priority. If you're the center of your world is way, way, way too small. And so I try to live my life with God at the center, with every person I meet inside the ring of people that I consider myself called to love. And so there's no room for selfishness. And if I have to make a sacrifice to meet you where you are, that's okay. I think God has provided more than enough for me to give up whatever I have to give up to meet you where you are.
Yeah. Do you think with the selfishness side of it, do you think service leads that?
100%, right? What does love look like? I remember being in school in a psychology class and talking about, for a child, time. Time is important. Well, which is more important, quality time or quantity time? It's a good question.
Yeah.
Right? For a child, it ends up being quantity because they don't have a way to really tell what quality is. So all they know is that you're there. Well, as you get older, you figure out that quality matters and all that stuff comes into play. For us interacting with with each other. We don't get the luxury of necessarily determining the quantity of time we'll spend with an individual. There are some folks that we can make that determination for. We have to be living our lives with a standard of what love looks like to the person that we're interacting with. And so often that's going to be service. And whether that service is a listening ear or a hand that meets some need, a sacrifice of some money because there's something that you can actually affect by spending a little bit of your money to improve their life. All of that service, right? Our church, Foundation Christian Church here in Noonan, talks about the fact that all service is inconveniencing yourself for the good of someone else. That translates to love to the person that you made the effort for. And that's game changing to me.
Yeah. And uncommon.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
uncommon.
Yeah, because it seems as if the majority of our culture is completely consumed with convenience. And so anytime that it's inconvenient, typically, if the choice is given to avoid it, people avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there's power in. I think there's power in embracing that inconvenience. At least from my experience, from actually embracing the inconvenience with a purpose.
Yeah, purpose changes everything, right? And the fact that you make a decision. The moment that I choose to serve you, give you time, give you money, give you attention, the moment I choose to give that to you, it shifts from being an inconvenience to being a decision, to being an action, right? It's only an inconvenience when I'm focused on me. But when I turn that focus around to actually being about you, it's no longer an inconvenience.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's a service. It's love. And that's powerful, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you think? Like, if you're searching for, if somebody's sitting there going, okay, like, that's something I would like to pursue in my own life. Like, what's a first step, practical application of like, okay, how can I intentionally start putting that as a priority?
Yeah, intention is a huge word, because when you set an intention, then it comes into the matrix by which you make decisions. So intentionality is huge. If you want to intentionally love people, I would say, number one, start with the people closest to you. So if you're married, start asking the question, what can I do for my spouse that they would feel loved? Whatever that is, right? And for me, I know that as silly as it is, when I take the trash out, my wife feels loved. When I do the dishes, do I want to do the dishes? No, never. It's still worth it, right? That's inconvenience, big deal. I did the dishes, but she receives that as love, right? And so we could talk about the love languages and all that, which is fine. Bottom line, you have to employ a little empathy and put yourself in the other person's shoes for just a moment, and then respond with what you believe they need or would receive as love. So I think mentally the process is choosing to see the person you're interacting with for who they are and asking the question, what can I do for them? Right? And it's as simple. This is ridiculous, but it's as simple as understanding that stranger on the street matters, and the fact that you choose to make eye contact and smile. That may, for them, be love. And if you can do that, then you can build on that for the next person, or for that person the next time, whatever the case is. It's the intention to see them as they are and ask the question, what can I do to make them feel loved?
Yeah, that first part really sticks out to me because as as I believe that we're all uniquely created, that we're all different, and loving somebody for who they are and knowing who they are, to me, is like a very important aspect of that, of relationship or anything like that. Of just like being able to celebrate what makes us different, you know what I mean? And not that like I want you to be like me and that's the only way we can be friends, right? Is the fact of like knowing that people are different, they think different, they different backgrounds, and like how they are is unique to them, And I've always appreciated that part of I like the difference in people. I'm drawn to what makes you different more than I am what makes you the same as everything else. And so to me, it's like, which that seems to be an uncommon thing, is to like the differences about people. But to me, that's an important part about, just being love or being friends, is like accepting of like who they are, and not making it seem like they got to be somebody else in order to be associated with you. That to me is an important thing, So I think that's a huge part of love.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really do appreciate about you, is the fact that you go through life with that attitude and a celebration of uniqueness. I've had to learn it. I grew up very, very sheltered and very much in the church, and it took a while for me to figure out that what I learned as the important things, right? All the boxes that you have to check for church. Those were the things that I was judging people on. And if they checked enough boxes, then I would love them and feel good about them. But if they didn't check enough boxes, then I was pretty quick to write people off. I'm so grateful that God led me out of that blindness to see that his beauty is on every face. I just have to have the eyes to see it, choose to see it. That's intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you think ego fits into that?
Oh, man. What a great question. Ego is so challenging because it's important. It is important that you understand yourself, that you like yourself, that you're proud of yourself. That's all ego. And it's important. But at the same time, if you want to love, if you want to walk through this world and have influence and impact in an uncommon way, then you're going to have to learn to subordinate your ego. Not get rid of it, but choose to take your ego and put it in the back seat. The person that you are interacting with, the person before you, needs to be your priority. And if your ego is in the way, you will never be able to do that. It's one of the things that I have been grateful for, I think, maturing out of an immature attitude to where I would view people fitting into my boxes. That's my ego. That's me putting on them value. That's so backwards. No, their value comes from God. Their value is in who they are, not in who I am. And so when I subordinate my ego, when it's not about me, when I don't have to get anything from the person in front of me, that's when I'm at a place where I can actually be a positive influence on them, have impact to benefit them. And more often than not, I walk away with the blessing as well.
Mm-hmm. How do you think y'all would define ego?
I was thinking about this when you sent me that clip yesterday of just like, because like you said, I mean, you need an ego to define who you are. You need that voice that says like, no, this is who I am. This is the way I do things. But then like ego can also, to me, where it gets negative is when you think this is the way I do it and everyone should do this. This is the standard. And so to me, it's like the good ego, bad ego. How do you define it? I think it's just the way that you view yourself, really. I think the bad ego becomes when you start elevating what you value and how you do things over celebrating the differences, of realizing that, God is an artist and we're all a piece of art that he's formed, And so I think ego, to define it, would be just the way that I define myself, the way I view myself, and kind of what guides me, I guess. Yeah. So that's how I would define the good ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, same thing, right? I think our ego is the way that we view ourselves. And I think whether it's good or bad is how you prioritize yourself in relationship to your God, the people around you, your environment, right? If people through the ages had healthy egos, our environment would not be in the condition it is, right? Which is not something you think about in terms of ego.
Yeah, well, I think, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how it's kind of laid out in my mind, and I've been digging on this a lot, and it fits within the category of this love topic. But like, when somebody initially says ego, or I think the first thing that comes to my mind is kind of obviously pride. The next thing would be arrogance. And so my immediate reaction just to the word is out of balance. It's prideful and arrogant, And so then when people are like, well, would you consider yourself egotistical? Then it's like, well, I mean, I attempt not to, but I'm sure that there's, it's there, But then as I've dug into it more and been thinking about it more and looking for it more, I see that honestly our daily interactions with everyone, ego is involved, because it comes down to the idea of exactly what you said earlier, where inconveniencing others, an inconvenience for yourself for the sake of others, right? Where honestly, the majority of decisions that are made on a daily basis are made typically based on how it's going to affect you, whether you admit that or not. Like if you set up a meeting with somebody and you have the opportunity to set the time, what's the motivation behind the time? Well, not in a negative way, but probably your availability, And so it's like all these little simple things that aren't necessarily a negative, like the meeting situation. Like, is it a negative to take a look at your calendar and say, oh, well, I have 9:30 available? No. But the perspective is, I have 9:30 available, me, And so it's all these microscopic decisions throughout the day that everybody makes. And is it coming from the perspective of how does it benefit or fit with me best, or does it fit with someone else? And am I making a sacrifice due to my own desire to meet them where they're at for whatever they're doing? And so all of a sudden it's like it has opened up my eyes to like in a massive way, to where it's like, man, everyone, if you're a human being, you are dealing with ego on a daily basis. And that ego either drives you to serve others because you're telling it no, or the opposite. And we see these extremes. You have the people in the world that, are way over here and are would be qualified as incredibly humble, or you have the people way over here that you would say, man, they are incredibly arrogant, and they think, that they're the best thing that is walking around, and so it's like those are the typical perspectives of when ego's mentioned. But honestly, it's in the everyday perspective, in the everyday little decisions, and so if you begin to attack life in a way to where you're analyzing the motivation to why you're doing something, and if the why when you start peeling back the layers to see what the why is, if the at the foundation of it is because, well, I mean, it's how it affects me, then that should be a red flag. You should be, okay, am I putting love as a priority at this point? If really at the end of the day, this decision is being made because of how it affects me, and I think that's a powerful tool to use, just on a daily basis. Now, sometimes I don't think it's wrong, to sit there and say, well, yeah, I mean, in this particular circumstance, it's okay that I'm making a decision based on how it's going to affect me, So, but the only way that you figure that out is trial and error,
Right.
and making those decisions and seeing what the result happens.
Yeah, those are such good thoughts. Such I think a powerful process to talk through, because we see the extremes, and there are things that we like about both, and there are things that we don't like about both, and so we're stuck in the middle. But the word that you use that I think is so key is balance. If we can balance our ego, and we can truly get to a place of considering others, right? Considering where we fit in relationship to others and to the world around us, it becomes easier to, the term I like, subordinate your ego. And your decisions are always going to include you and what's good for you in them. But if we can just pull in the idea that you're not the most important thing in making that decision, there are others that will be impacted. When we really begin to consider them, then I think we're taking steps in the right direction to control that ego and keep it in balance. Yeah. And I think you're right about the idea that there are times that what's serving your ego is okay, right? But even in those moments, there's still a balance. Like I go to the gym every day, and a lot of that is completely about my ego. It's completely about what benefits me. But at the same time, I am aware and I am conscious that as I am healthy, as I am strong, as I am fit, I become more useful to those around me. I can serve my family. I can serve my community. And so even in that, there's a balance on something that seems to be completely ego-driven.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, getting to that point of identifying that fits into one of these chapters, character and integrity. in that chapter, some practical application that I think is huge that we've talked about a lot here on the podcast. But in the book it says, in practical terms, I think it's valuable to physically write out your values. Putting pen to paper allows you to see what you are saying is important to you. Additionally, there is a value in grouping your values in categories. As this might simplify the list in your mind, the third recommendation I will make is to rank or prioritize your values from most important to least important. This exercise will make you be honest about how important each value really is to you. I'm not sure anyone is excited to do this work, but I believe that is an important step in establishing a clear understanding of your character. Give us some insight into that.
Yeah, right. That kind of process for me is hard. I don't like doing that kind of work, but because I've made myself contemplate and reflect and kind of dig through what are the things that really matter to me, I can sit here today and say, and I think it sounds oversimplified that that doesn't have any meaning, because but for me, my values are faith, family, and fitness. And literally every decision I make through the day is flowing through the lens of those three things. And honestly, all of my fitness and my family flow through the lens of my faith. So I've had to go through that process of asking myself, okay, what do I say I value? How does that show up in my life? And if it's not evident in my life, is it really a value? The answer is no. All right, so I have to take it off the list, or I have to change my behaviors. If I say this is important, then I've got to begin to do things that show it as a priority for me. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I figured out that if I take care of myself and my body, that's the fitness piece, that I'm a better, more beneficial to my family, which God's gift to me is my wife and my kids and now my granddaughter. And I want to be somebody that she can admire, somebody that she can look up to. And all of that fits into the fact that God put me here for a purpose, to honor him, to glorify him, but to have a positive impact because of him every place I go.
Yeah, I think you hit it with the, which is funny because it's also I guess a chapter in the book with evidence, and I think, hey man, your ego can show up anywhere, even putting that pen to paper. So I think honestly, that evidence of what you see in your life will let you know where your values are at. And like, cause I mean, like I said, you can write down that you want to be fit, right? But like if your diet doesn't reflect that and you put no effort into working out or anything like that, then you know what I mean? It's so, I think like the saying goes, you know, the proof is in the pudding. It's like, where do you spend your time? What do you do? How are you investing in people or whatever? And then that'll show you what your true values are, you know, cause you can write down, you know what I'm saying? You can write down
idealistic,
yeah, like,
you know,
I would like to be this guy, you know, but I mean, at the end of the day, to me, that, you know, in times in my life, I've had to take, you know, inventory about where's my time going? What am I doing? Even though in my heart, I might want to be a certain type of person, you know, and your ego can lie to you about the effort you're putting in too. And so, but the evidence you can't lie about, you know, what you see is, you know, and how people feel and all that, that's the evidence of how you're living that out. So, you know, you can hope for the best and be good intentions, you know, and be like, I meant to do well and I was going to get to that. That's important to me on this over here. But I think the evidence, you know, and taking a inventory of actually what you're doing, what you're actually doing, what you're spending your time on, or money or whatever it is, I think that's the telltale sign of, you know, what you truly value.
And I think you have to receive the evidence honestly.
Yeah.
You know, and not allow that ego to get in the way to justify whatever the evidence produces.
Yeah.
You know, because there's fruit in our lives that you can see. And so if the fruit doesn't align with the core values or the priorities, as you suggested, to like, okay, what do you prioritize, and put them 1 to 5, and then you can turn over here on and say, okay, well, here's the fruit of what I'm actually living. Do they align with the first 5 that I have? That's a moment of honesty that you have to have with yourself, because your ego will flare up in that moment and say, well, like number 4 doesn't align with this fruit or this evidence in my life, but it's because of this. And you don't take the ownership of actually like, well, who's in control of that? You know, who's making the decisions? Well, I am. And so are you owning those decisions and saying, okay, then I'm contributing to this evidence that isn't aligning with 5. And so what do I need to do to get them more aligned and more on the same path of what I actually do prioritize? You know, and I think that's where the struggle is for most people, because the disconnect with how do I get there? You know, like, because in the meantime, you know, I'm working a job, I got 3 kids, I got a wife, I'm running around, we got things to do, the schedule's full, you know, and so then you're like, well, how do I even begin to take this evidence and make it align with the priorities amongst my day-to-day, and actually putting that to work to actually come to fruition is more than a challenge. I mean, more of a challenge than you would give it credit to.
Yeah, and I think the disconnect happens when we talk about values, but we don't necessarily connect actions to them. And so for me, I think I got a much better handle on that when I became very intentional about goal setting. And as I've gotten better with setting goals, the goals are the way that I adjust the evidence in my life to those values. Mm-hmm. So it starts with the value. I set the goal. That directs my actions to be in alignment. I'm big on that idea of things aligning. Before we kind of leave this whole topic, the word integrity matters to me. I don't know that people understand it. I think people like the idea of it. To me, integrity is how well you live out the values that you have set in your life. Right? There's no other standard. If I judge your integrity on my values, it may not be accurate. I have to judge your integrity on your values. It's kind of the idea that you can't get mad at a dog for chewing up something in the house.
Right.
That dog is just being a dog. So don't get mad at it, right? By the same token, I can't get mad at a man who's never been taught certain things, that they don't do those certain things, right? So that's part of the purpose of this book, is to try to come underneath and begin laying some foundations that will make people think about what their values are, so their lives can be lived out in integrity, because their life is lining up with what actually matters to them. And they've got some information to make better decisions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you said something important there about judging people on what they value, right? Because I know in my life with people that, you know, they've expressed to me problems, or I can see the hurt in their life or whatever. And, you know, and it's like, well, if you just change this. And the thing about it is, like, I can't shove, even if what I'm saying to you is true and I know it to be true because I did the same thing and I've made it, it's like, I can't shove that value until it clicks in your head that, like, this thing needs to be a goal for me. Then it's like, I'm really just going to wind up pushing you away by trying to shove that value on you and say, this, you got to get this, you know, when, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like so many times I've had guys talk to me about relationship problems or whatever it is, fulfillment, any of that stuff, right? And it's like, I mean, I could tell you, but it's going to sound like preaching because you don't even value this certain aspect, right? Which, or like, you know, friends and relationships, right? It's like they want to keep playing games with girls and then they don't understand why they can't have a solid relationship. And it's like, well, you gotta value just one woman in general. Like, if you don't value that, what are you even searching after? If you don't value that, then you're in a losing game already. And so that's what I mean, is like, but I can't force you to be a one woman kind of guy. You have to recognize that that's the truth in order to find that fulfillment, or else it's like, if you can't entertain that, why do you think she would? Or, you know what I mean? So to me, it's just like understanding what people value a lot of times it helps me with the other part, which is accepting you for who you are, and like, hey, this is your journey, and you're going to continue to make that. So to me, it's like, that's a big thing I had to learn myself, was not to impose what I value on someone else, because that they might not value that, and it might send them in a weird way of just being like preachy or like I'm egotistical, like I think I got the answer or whatever like that. So
yeah, I think that is something the church has misplayed in a dramatic way. The church has, for my entire life, tried to get people to change behaviors. Well, changing the behavior doesn't matter if you haven't changed the heart first. Right? That's back to this idea of value. when somebody values, when somebody loves God and understands that God loves them, well, then their actions begin to change, behaviors change. But just because, growing up, smoking and drinking, were the things, and if you did those things, so many people, right? You need to quit drinking. Well, if you changed your values, then it's a decision that you could choose to make if you want to. But we just get out of whack.
Yeah, I mean, if we could be good enough, we wouldn't need Jesus. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just being honest. Like, even today, I'm a believer. But if I could be good enough, I wouldn't need him.
Right.
Right. So that's the whole point. Is like it's a complete fallacy, because it's like I can even today of believing for years. I'm not. There's no a point where I achieve where I'm like, I'm good now. My behavior is all changed. It doesn't happen, because if you're not outward with it, it's going on inward, because none of us are blameless. So to me, it's like that's a huge issue. And then that's what makes walls go up, right? Of drawing lines and saying, we've got it together, you don't, because we don't drink or smoke, or we don't do this, and to me, it's just like, if you could be good enough, then why do you even need the Bible, man? Or why even need Jesus? So to me, I mean, that's a huge thing for it sets people up for failure. I think.
And I hope that this book, this idea of being the uncommon path, I hope that at no point do I come across as saying this is the way you gotta be. No, this is the way I choose to be. I find it to be good for me. Maybe take a look at it.
Yeah, no, the humbleness is all over it for sure. I definitely.
Yeah, I think the challenge with those circumstances is that, like, when people experience a freedom that they haven't experienced in their life, the initial reaction is like, hey, I want to share it, right? Which is exactly what you're doing with this book, right? I want to share this, but then human nature is not everybody has arrived to the conclusions that you have based on your experiences, because they haven't necessarily had those experiences, and so therefore the challenge becomes where you are interacting in a relationship with another person that may even have conversations that say, hey, I would like to see these differences in my life. And I see that in you, and so how have you accomplished that, right? And then you share those with them, but then it's your experiences, not theirs, that have allowed you to connect those dots. Well, then they end up like not being disciplined or consistent, and then get back into the rut of whatever they were doing, and then all of a sudden you're in a position like, what are you doing? Like, you told me you wanted to, do something different in your life, because you see the freedom that others experience by valuing these certain things, but then here you are doing this, and then all of a sudden you have this hurdle in relationship where you're like, okay, well, like, do I push them? Do I hold them accountable? Or do I just respond with patience and understanding and say, they have to, although you're sharing the dots that you've connected with them, they've got to connect the dots for themselves to actually apply it.
Yeah.
And some people don't get there. They don't connect the dots. And I think that's where the dilemma with people feeling judged comes from. Because then all of a sudden you're like, from your perspective, you're like, okay, well, how do I continue to engage in this relationship in a positive way? And sometimes the answer is that you begin to disengage, but then that might be received as like, well, man, he's judging me, so there's a fine line to it.
I think there's ego wrapped up on both of those.
100%.
Both ends of that, of like, I told you the right way, so you need to do the right way. And then the other ego is what does he know? Or I got to find my own way, which is that we don't save people, Jesus does. So, it's like, until someone is, you can hear truth truth doesn't. Whoever hears it knows that it's true, right? But it's like to set that as a value for yourself. To me, you have to be pursuing that relationship, and nowadays, like, people want to give credit to anything else other than Jesus and the Bible and anything. So they will look for any other way before they submit to that. And so there's ego on both sides. There's ego in knowing what the truth is, and then there's ego in wanting to discover that for yourself. And at the same time, we are different. So, what worked for you might not work for me in the sense of how you attack that. The truth doesn't change. Truth is truth. But the route to get there might be different for you or me or whatever. And so I think there's ego on both sides of that, for sure, of just being like, as people, we want to, when I tell you the truth, I want you to take that in, and don't you do anything different, because that's the truth. And I mean, especially with like, even in my life, like, I completely turn things around. So when someone talks to me about the things that I struggle with, and I tell them something and they want to wrestle with it, I'm like, all right. I mean, that's fine, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you can wrestle with it and discover it for yourself. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. It's like, that's why I've always leaned back on the fact that, like, I don't change anybody. So if in that moment, all I was supposed to do is tell you what worked for me, and then you keep that in your mind as you go about your life, then I've done what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One of the great freedoms that I've found is that I have very high, I assume the best in people, right? I think people are amazing, and people can rise to all kinds of incredible heights.
For sure.
Right? So I come in with that assumption about people, but I also come in with zero expectation, right? So I share this content in this book, and I believe that you'll benefit from using it. The reality is, I have zero expectation that you will apply any of it, and I'm not going to love you any less because you didn't do it, because I didn't expect you to.
Yeah.
Right. And so that sets me up to have enormous freedom in relationship with people.
I think that's healthy though, but I would say, how do you guard yourself against not having expectations?
To me, there's no risk. I mean, right? I want to be available to you to help you go wherever you want to go in a way that I can help.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I'm not going to be hurt because you don't pursue that. But I know lots of people who, they put expectations. I'm going to tell you what to do, but if you don't do it, I'm going to be hurt, or I'm going to be mad. Well, I have this freedom that I can give all of myself to you without the expectation that you're going to do anything with it. And I'm not going to let my ego come in and tell me that, well, they should have. Mm-hmm. You deserve. Well, I don't deserve anything. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. The thing that comes to my mind is how do you tackle that in a real world like scenario? Like, let's say you got a coworker, and let's say he or she is struggling with getting deadlines on time to a certain spot, and so you say, "Hey, I want to serve you by helping." Mm-hmm. You accomplish like getting rid of that habit of procrastination or whatever it may be, mm-hmm. And so you do. But then that he or she is on your team. So their procrastination or their laziness or ineffectiveness or inefficiencies end up affecting the entire team mm-hmm. in a negative way, right? Yeah. And so then you're like, hey, like, this would help you. Do this, and it could possibly change the outcome. And then everybody on the team it'll affect them in a positive way. But then they continue mm-hmm. to make the decisions, even though they've heard it and they're open to it and they've expressed to you, hey, I want to change this about myself. I want this to be different. because I know that it's negatively impacting the team, but then it's consistently still happening. And then you're sitting there like, why aren't you doing it? And it's not only affecting you negatively, it's affecting me negatively, and it's affecting the team negatively.
Yeah. So I think the moment that you bring it into a business scenario, right, when the relationship is superior to subordinate, especially, that changes, right? As a superior, you have certain expectations. Now, even I'm your boss, and you're having this time management issue, and I'm sharing with you tips and tricks and trying to get you to step up, right? But you don't. As a boss, we're going to have issues because there are expectations. You're impacting the business and all your coworkers, right? And at some point, you're going to get promoted to customer because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, right? Yeah. That's different because we can go through that entire process, and as a person, I still love you exactly the same. Because humanly, I don't have the expectation that you're going to step up. I know you can, but I don't have that expectation. But on the business side, those expectations are absolutely there. And again, the best way to do that, I think, as an employer, as a boss, is to really see the person as they are, prioritize them in those interactions when it's about really helping them.
Transfer that scenario to a child, to one of your kids.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts with it?
So that's a combo deal. As a parent, you have to set standards, and then you have to adhere to those standards, because the moment you set a standard and then don't adhere to it, you're sending all kinds of mixed and or bad messages, right? But as a parent, it all comes back to, am I going to unlove my child because they didn't clean up their room the way I wanted them to? No, right? That's the human expectation. That's the place where I find this great freedom, because I've been able to, for the most part, transfer that to anybody. I like that a lot. But for a child, then in the home, again, it's not that different from a boss employee relationship, parent-child. There have to be expectations, and it's for the good of the child, not for the good of my ego.
Well, I mean, why the standard?
Responsibility.
But I mean, just in general, why do you set the standard? I mean, let's just say for the kid. It's because I want you to be fulfilled in life, right?
A better version of themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that this will help you, even though it's a small thing, right?
Yep.
The small things matter. So to me, it's like identifying that why, which is I want you to be better, right? But at the same time, like when I like, even with my kids, it's like, look, I can be black and blue in the face preaching a principle to you, or why it's important that we do this, or why it's important that we do that. But ultimately, the freedom that I have is that I know that everybody's journey is their own. And so I even for myself, my parents told me a lot of good things that I disregarded, and I had to find out the hard way that what they were saying was true, and that was my journey, and that's who I am, So on one hand, it's like we set a standard because we love and we want the best for you. But at the same time, like, just like my kids can't borrow my faith, they can't borrow the things that I care about either. They have to own that. People around me have to own what they say is important. And, at the end of the day, like, you have to define, what it is. Do I love you? If I love you, then I got to love who you are. And that means whether it's a headache sometimes, or just downright frustrating, or like makes me angry, like, those are all moments that in the big scheme of things, the love I have for you is bigger than your shortcomings of my expectations. And so for me, that's where I land. Even with my own kids, it's like I set a standard and like I have expectations for them, but all of those expectations are due to the fact that I want you to do better in life than I have. And so I'm trying to give you something that you can carry with you, you know, that'll at least be a part of you, you know, as far as the kids go, you know, that would be my take on that. For sure.
I think that's well said.
Yeah. Tying into that, but you know, kind of back to another highlight I had. Keeping my disciplines also come down to commitment. For many people, it is easier to make a commitment to someone else than to themselves. This is sad but true. You are literally the most important person in your life, but you are at the bottom of your commitment hierarchy. Why is it you can and will get up early to see a loved one off to the airport or meet someone for breakfast, but you can't get up early for yourself to work out or meditate? We do these things we don't want to do because someone asked us to or invited us. We do this because we don't want to let them down or hurt their feelings. It's strange that we never think about letting ourselves down when we skip a workout or are too busy to apply some self-care. I believe you should keep your commitments to others. More importantly, I believe you should make and keep your commitments to yourself. Making and keeping your commitments to yourself is at the heart of being disciplined and is powerful in shaping your life. Give me some thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's uncommon. I think it's uncommon to understand that every time I fail to keep a commitment to myself, that I'm undermining my character and I'm shortcutting. I'm weakening my discipline in every other area of my life. It feels like a small thing. You know, well, I don't feel like going to the gym this morning. But I made a commitment that I was going to go to the gym, whatever it is, 3 days a week or 5 days a week. Or the moment I make a commitment, then I need to keep that commitment. That feels like locking myself into this prison, but it's not. I get this tremendous freedom from keeping my word to myself. It's back to integrity. Am I going to behave in a way that lines up with what I say is important? And I see it all the time, and I think moms are the worst. Moms will do anything and everything for everyone else and never do for themselves what they know they need to do. And then we want to blame everybody else for us not getting what we need. It's not on them. The moment you start blaming, you're looking at the wrong place, right? It's on me to choose. My fitness journey, when it became important to me, I made the decision that I was not going to prioritize it over my family. That's why I started early morning workouts, so I could be done. The sacrifice I made was personal on sleep or whatever, but it's a commitment I made. And so when the alarm went off and I didn't feel like getting up, too bad. Who cares? You made this commitment, you go do it. I would have done it if it was for somebody else. I just think it's important. It's foundational to real discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, to me, that would point to evidence, right, of whether it's important or not, you know. Because, I mean, like we all feel pressures from the outside world, you know, like you see people getting in shape around you, you're like, I should probably do that. It doesn't mean that was initially your thought. It's just you see it, you're like, they're looking pretty good. I probably need to be doing that. But it doesn't mean that you really actually care about that, you know. So I think, you know, identifying what's actually important to you is, you know, is going to be the determining factor in that, you know. Because if it's not really important to you, then the commitment is easy to break, I think.
Yeah, right. If it's important, you'll find a way.
Yeah.
If it's not important, you'll find an excuse.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much in here. I mean, I got all kind of highlights, and we'd be here for a while to go through the whole thing. But I just want to encourage folks, pick it up, and read it. You can get it on Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, that's gonna be the easiest, quickest, best way to get it.
And and what are you searching? The title.
Yeah, Uncommon Kingdom is the title. Conquer and rule your best life, one uncommon decision at a time, and that's all it is. Right? It's just a simple guide to try to get folks to think through things that matter. And we have this incredible power that we were given to determine the way we live our lives.
Yeah.
And most of us have kind of given that power away to all kinds of other things. Well, it's time to take that power back by choosing the way you live your life. So before we leave today, I do want to throw out, and it's the last chapter in the book, but it might be the most important for me, is the idea of consistency. Choose what you're going to do and then be consistent, right? It's easy. You pick up a book like this, it's got 21 characteristics. Well, that's crazy, right? That's overwhelming to think, oh, I got all this stuff I got. No, just pick one thing to do and do it consistently. And consistency is more often than not, right? It doesn't necessarily mean every day, every time. More often than not is this thing showing up. Am I following through? Consistency has had as much of an impact on me as anything else. As I got clear on values, as I got clear on goals, being consistent has had the biggest payoff for me. Fellas, I'm so grateful for the time today. Thanks for the conversation. Yeah. I love it. I am holding my life, everything in it, whatever success I have, this book, with very open hands. And so to anybody listening, watching this, I just say I'm here for you. If I can serve you, I want to serve you. And if you've got questions about the book, so the easiest way to connect with me is email. Just send me an email. Let me get back to you with whatever. We'll set up a phone call and we'll go wherever you need to go. And my email is RDC Best Life. RDC Rich DEWEES Consulting Best Life at gmail.com. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to get feedback on the book if you pick it up and check it out. I would love to know what you think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. Appreciate you coming on. I'm a super local kind of person. I love the Hawks, the Falcons, the Braves. Some of my people that I love to listen to the most are artists that I know from around my hometown. So this is cool. I mean, I remember the pride I felt when my dad wrote something, and it, it's great to have this in my hand, to see people taking risk and putting themselves out there. So I'm just gonna show this right here, and we'll put the link in the description so that people can just click on that for the Amazon purchase. But definitely appreciate you coming on and everything that you do to pour into guys around here. Definitely appreciate everything that you do, man. Thank you. And I guess you got any closing comments?
Nope. I think we did a good job.
Before we jump off, let me invite any man who might be interested. I do host a Facebook group called Men of the Uncommon Kingdom. If you're local here in Noonan, you're probably familiar with Chatty Men of Noonan. This is a different kind of group than that, for right? Sure. I would love to have you jump on. It's mostly me sharing, just insights and things that might make you think about some of the stuff in the book. And I would love to have your interaction on that too. So Men of the Uncommon Kingdom, just send a request and we'll get you in the group. But fellas, I appreciate what you do. Masculine Revolution is legit, and keep it up.
Appreciate you, man. Well, as always, y'all can reach out to us at Facebook or at Gmail at masculinerevolution@gmail.com. Until next time.
Join the family.